All right. What's going on, guys? It's the Dave here, sitting here with Dave, Mr. Rodriguez, a good buddy of mine that I've known for a good long time. What we're going to be covering today is the law of pain. It's one of the chapters from the 15 Laws of Growth by John Maxwell. And before we get into that, I just want to ask Dave, how are you doing and what's been going on in your life?
I am doing great. I am almost done with barber school, my chosen career for me. And I am competing in battles, trying to expand my growth. And I am trying to build my career right now.
That's cool, man. That's cool. All right. So we had a good conversation the other day. Um, and and it all revolves around pain and how we can either use pain to grow or we can allow pain to crush us. And so I'm going to ask you just a couple of questions and I want your feedback. I want to know how you felt in the moment, how you felt afterward. Um, Basically just give us the rundown of how it all went. So the first question here I have is, tell me about when you lost your son and how you felt. That's a hard.
And we went into a little bit better conversation at that point. I was at a low point of my life. I was alcoholic, drug addict, and when I lost my son, I was actually incarcerated at the time. I had been incarcerated for about 30 days, and I lost my son. The way I found out about my son was we were watching the news one day in the cell that I was in, and it came across toddler dies at UTPB. At that point I was living in Odessa, and I knew at that point they were pointing towards the trailer that my baby mother at the time had been living in. And, I knew it wasn't a certain thing because they could have been pointed at anybody. But, I had a deep, dark feeling in my life. And then to finally get the phone call about an hour later after everything had happened, absolutely crushed my entire world. I had no way of getting out there. I had no way of checking on my baby mother at the time. I had no way of going and being with my son. I had no way of communicating with my family. I was called into a small office, and they essentially told me that my son had passed from SIDS, and blew my mind, blew my world. He was at the time my entire world. I'd been raising him for 10 months, and a lot of the stupidity and things that I was doing in my life ruined the last 30 days of being with him. I would say that it crushed my entire world.
That's hard, man. That's hard. That's hard just to listen to, let alone experience. So how did you cope at first? How did you cope at first?
I was a complete and total wreck. You know, I couldn't just make the regular phone calls that you can make to family. I couldn't just make the regular phone calls that you can make to, your girlfriend or wife or, significant other at the time. And it was one of those ones that, I had to learn how to cope by myself. And, being incarcerated, you can't show emotion the way that you would want to show emotion, because they take it as a sign of weakness. And so I had to learn how to cope and deal with it on my own. Luckily, I had an amazing mother at the time, and she started sending me, TD Jakes books, wanting to buy them. I started getting in my ward a little bit more, and she actually sent me a book by TD Jakes. If I could remember the name of it right now, I would. But the first opening line in there was a scripture that had been written in, basing around the book. And it said, when I was a child, I acted as a child, I spoke as a child, but when I became a man, I put away my childish things. And it, it opened up my eyes because, I had made the decisions to do the things that I do. When you're a child, your parents make a lot of decisions for you in life. And, I had to come to the realization that I was no longer a child. I was a man, and I had to face up for my actions and what I had done. And, you know, especially, not being there the last 30 days to watch my son grow, to watch him go be with, what I call his greater dad. And, that was emotionally hard, but, luckily I knew in which direction to head when I couldn't find anybody physically to speak to.
Right. Wow. Wow. Okay, so going off of that, at what point did you decide that you wanted to change things?
It was definitely right after he had passed. I wanted to change what I was doing in life. Number one, to make him proud. Number two, to make sure that I never ended up back in the same position. The I ended up doing about 2 years incarcerated through TDC, and in the 2 years, not only did I lose my son, I lost my brother, my grandmother, my godfather, and 4 deaths in about 2 years. It was heartbreaking and gut wrenching because not only did I lose the people that I loved the most, I also didn't get to attend their funerals. I didn't get to say goodbye. I didn't I didn't get that opportunity to have peace with what I wanted to do, peace with them. My grandmother, during the summers, I remember she would raise us, and she would, we would go to her house for 60, 70 days out of the year, and we would spend our most time there. And I was my grandmother's favorite. She saved up her quarters and change every year. And then, we would go down there. All the grandkids would go to her house for the summer, and this big old gallon jug of chains that she used to have, she'd be like, okay, don't tell the rest of the kids, but this is for you. This is not for anyone else. You know what I mean? So I knew I was my grandmother's favorite. And, just not being able to go and say goodbye and, see her one last time, was heartbreaking. And, at that point in my life, when I got out of being incarcerated, I knew that it was no longer about me. It was no longer about what David wanted to do and what David, I guess, needed to do in a sense. It was what I had to do. And, that was make a change in my life and start to point my goals and dreams in a different direction.
Right. Wonderful. Okay, so at this point in your life, you're out. You're not incarcerated anymore, right? So the next big hit in your life was, tell me about when you lost your mom.
I lost my mom February this year due to COVID. And, you know, uh, I had went through a transition stage to where I was actually changing my life, and I wasn't the person that I once was. Um, but I was still doing things that I probably shouldn't have been doing. And, making the decisions again to not be obedient, not be obedient to myself, not be obedient to my greater power, not be obedient to, a lot of things in life. And, you know, my mom was my absolute rock. She was there through everything in life. My mom was always a phone call away. Every time I would get incarcerated, my mom was the one that would back me, so to speak. And then, not just that, even growing up in life, I remember Christmases where we didn't have much at all. And, my mom, the only person that she would break down in front of was me. And so, I was her rock, she was my rock. And, losing her was probably the biggest blow in my life. And um, it definitely sent me for a whirlwind. I went back into what I knew, and I tried to relive everything that I had done before, to see if I could get some of that pain to go away. And, if anything, it made it worse. It made me succumb to all my life experiences and everything that I had grown to accomplish in this life. I gave it right back.
Right.
And, I'll never forget. It was probably about a month afterwards. I had been back on my, back on my own self-righteousness. And, about a month afterwards, I woke up in the middle of the night and I was sitting there just thinking to myself, I said, David, if I died today, what would my legacy be? Because I had always, known that my mom was going to make it, and, in the end, that there would be no pain. And, and I was happy to always be able to know that she was going to do great. And, I want to leave that same legacy, not for just myself, but for my family around me.
Wow. That's tough, man. I lost mine back in 13. So I feel your pain. That's one of the hardest losses that I've had in there was my mom. So I feel you there. Now, how did you cope at first, right after losing your mom?
Um, I definitely blamed myself. I blamed God for a large part of it. I blamed COVID, the government, and I tried to put blame on everybody. And I tried to drink myself into a state to where I could bear what was going on, because it's like you said, it is one of the hardest moments of your life. Started smoking weed again, trying to block out all the memories that I had in my life, so that I could forget. Right. And it didn't work that way. You have to, yeah. And somebody once told me this, and it was logical to me at that point, and it's logical to me to this day. In order to get through a storm, you have to go through it.
Right.
And if you don't go through that storm and you don't experience it firsthand and manage it, when that storm comes again, you'll break the same way you did the first time.
Right.
And I have had, luckily an outstanding amount of love from my sister, my older brother, who's mentally slow. It blows my mind how, he is in the state that he's in, but he understands compassion and love so much, right, that even on the days that I didn't tell him, hey, I'm hurting, or I'm just not doing well, he would come up to me and he would just hug me and he would say, brother, I love you. Don't worry. She's with a greater father. Right. And, it took about a month, and then I started to decide, what, my past is my past, and my future is what I want to base my life on.
Right. Man, yeah. So I like what you said about the legacy and leaving it behind. So how are you building your legacy now? How are you working on your legacy now, knowing what you endured in the past, all the stuff that used to break you? How have you turned all of that into something that's helping you become a better person?
And to be honest, a large part of the past and a large part of your future, sometimes the great thing about, your past is you learn life experiences and, what you have come to do. And my career path right now is barbering. Don't get me wrong, I work about 80 hours a week, because I am in school right now, and I'm just about finished. But, one of my last past experiences that I've, always come back to is hard work. There were years that I tried to take the easy way and sell drugs or steal or, do things that weren't going to benefit me in the end, but would benefit me in the moment.
Right.
And so, one of my past experiences definitely was making sure that I worked my butt off to get where I'm at now. And so, with that being said, that was definitely a past experience. And then, another side of that too is I didn't lose everything in my past because it was bad for me. There's a lot of things in your past that you do that are great for you. And, one of the greatest things that, and I'm going to have to share this, I didn't tell you this the other day, but networking, I guess it was about a week ago that we had this competition.
Yeah.
And, my greatest, thing that I've ever done in life was network with people and get to know people in different areas of not only the great state of Texas, but Las Vegas, California, Georgia, Florida, all these southern states down here, to where, if I need some kind of help or network or put something together, I'm capable of doing that. And, I guess, like just last week when we had this competition and I was in Midland, and last minute, things started to fall apart, and I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do. I don't have anybody to cut. And, I called you up, or you called me up, and, we had that conversation, and luckily, we were able to get back together and, get this competition done and over with. So, taking a lot of what we've done in our past, as long as it's the positive side of it, I feel like we can use that in our future, to this day.
That's good, man. That's cool. So in the arena of pain, oh, I just had it. Give me a second. Here we go. So John Maxwell talks about pain in his book, and he's got a little thing that you can put together for yourself in the future if you have something that you feel like is breaking you. So the first thing you do is you define the problem, like really define it, and then you understand the emotion. How is it making you feel? And then the key in that side is not to let it take you. You want
Absolutely.
to experience the emotion. You want to understand it. You want to know, this has caused this emotion in my life. The emotion doesn't control my life. It's just a reaction to what's going on in my life at that moment. So understanding what's happening and the emotion that's coming from it, and not letting that take you. And then articulate the lesson. What am I supposed to learn here? We had talked about how some people, whenever something bad happens, they let it beat themselves up. They're like, oh, why God, why did this happen to me? Why did this happen to me? You could have, this is the worst thing ever. Instead of thinking of the why is it happening to me, ask yourself, what am I supposed to learn from this?
Absolutely.
What am I supposed to learn from this? And then when you figure out what you're supposed to learn from it, what do you want to change? You know that there's something wrong, that's why you're experiencing this pain. What am I supposed to learn from it? What do I need to change about myself? Because in your position, you were in a bad spot. You had been making bad decisions for a period of your life, and then you were woken up. And in one of the hardest slaps in the face that I could ever imagine. And then life started happening again, and then you started falling back into that, and then you were hit again. You know what I mean? And so
Absolutely.
it's a lesson. I feel like you've learned a lesson because you're growing. You're in a better place. You're in a better place mentally, emotionally, and you're looking toward becoming better. And so that's what's exciting about your story, is that you've had the experiences and you've taken them and learned from them, and you're making different choices, and then put into action the things that you want to change. And that's what you're doing. Going to school. You're still working a lot, still going to school. You're still serving the community. You're making better use of your time. And how do you feel now that you're doing all the things that you're doing?
I I feel accomplished, to be honest with you. I am, I work about 80 hours a week. I work 6 days a week. I go to school 5 days a week, which is still working because I'm learning how to cut hair. and I'm putting in about 80 hours a week, and then I come to my hometown every Saturday evening and stay till about Monday afternoon. And I cut hair for the homeless here, for kids that are less fortunate. And I feel like I'm just on top of the world. I've really taken what I'm learning and what I'm experiencing, and I'm able to give back to somebody that was in my position at one point. Somebody that doesn't have much, somebody that, needs that, even if it's just a haircut type push. Sometimes, when I get people in my barber chair and I have a conversation with them and they open up to me about life and life experiences, I'm able to relate, about 95% of the time. And the 5% that I'm not, I'm there to be a listening ear, and to give that warmth and that comfort to them and say, hey, you know what, it's not over. We're not done. We are not finished in this life. We have to continue to move forward, and we have to continue to battle ourselves on a daily basis to make ourselves better. One of the things that you said just a minute ago, was the reaction, and then you said something about action. I base my life around that, is my action and reaction, because my action and reaction in 5 seconds can change my life for the next 5 years.
Right.
And I had to learn that the hard way, being incarcerated, doing the other things that I did. And so now I've had to take my time and say, what am I going to let my reaction or my actions change and alter my life for the better or for the good? And you have to perceive life as you want it to be successful, not for just the moment,
Mm-hmm.
but for the rest of your life. And so, you have to definitely take your time and make sure that you're taking that negativity and turning it into positivity, and continue to push forward.
And look, like what you said right there, taking the negative and turning it into a positive. It's not going to be easy. It's not
Absolutely
going to be
not.
easy, but you have to make that choice. You have to say, am I going to let this beat me down? Am I going to let this keep me at this level of my life? Or am I going to say, okay, I don't accept my life like this anymore. I'm going to use this as a springboard to become better, to do better, to serve. You know what I mean? Change your life for the better. And when you do that, the people around you notice that. And you have the opportunity to change other people's lives. And I feel like that is so much more rewarding, changing other
Absolutely.
people's lives. Man,
Absolutely.
good deal. Good deal. Well, that's all I've got on my side, question wise. Do you have anything else that you want to add? Yeah, we know that you're
Uh,
doing the haircut stuff. I have your card here. I'm gonna send me your link, and I'll put it in the bottom of the thing for anybody who is watching and you want to get in touch with David. Um, we're gonna have a link to either his email or a phone number or something that you can get in touch with him and visit with him, or if you need to talk to David and you need to hear his story better or anything like that, he can get a hold of you. But I want to leave it to you with some final thoughts. Anything that you want to tell people?
my biggest thing that I want to tell, um, the people out there, or the people that are listening, is, never think that you're alone. Never think that you have to go in this life and do this all by yourself. There are so many places and, people that you can reach out to. And if there's not, the biggest thing about life is when you find peace within yourself, you'll start to not think, oh, I have to talk to somebody, or I have to get help from somebody, or I this or this or this that from somebody or something. Um, and you'll start to do it on your own. You'll start to build on your own. You'll start to say, you know what, I want to do better. I want to be positive. I want to get right.
Right.
And when you start to want in life instead of need, it makes a big difference in your life, because needing things in life is like, I need a cruise ship with $1 million to go gamble and
Right.
live the rest of my life. What I have to have in life is the necessities around me, and food and water and light and shelter and a vehicle to get back and forth to work, a job in itself,
Mhm.
and not just that, but within your inner self is love and compassion. People have to have love and compassion, otherwise we just start to beat ourselves down because we have so much hatred in life. Spread the positivity, make sure that you're helping others, make sure that you're giving to others, even when you don't have it, because sometimes the greatest blessing in that you can ever be given is blessing somebody else.
That's true. That's true. That is awesome. All right, Dave. Thank you so much for the time that you've shared with me today. That's all I got. I'm just like, wow, like all soaking it in. Thank you. I appreciate you. Um, and that's it, man.
We'll keep in contact, brother, man.
Absolutely.
And if I'm ever out that way again, I'd love to cut your hair again.
Absolutely. I loved it. All right.
We'll see.